The other thing I'm really trying to do right now is go for the holy three-peat of brassica harvests. I'm going for that. I got the fall harvest, then I got the winter harvest, which I'm in right now. I want to get a true spring harvest in San Diego. So what I've done is I've transplanted a lot of young seedlings, I think about in mid-February. So hopefully by the end of March, they'll start to actually be harvestable, and then I'll be able to transition into my full summer garden.
Welcome to the Beet. We're excited to be here. Feels good to see the sun. It's been
real nice.
4 or 5 days since either of us saw the actual sunlight.
Truth.
We were up in Seattle at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show. We had a blast, had a big booth. We met maybe 1,000 of you guys.
Yeah, at least.
I don't know how many.
I don't know.
I started
There's
to
a lot of really nice people.
A lot of really nice people. If you're listening to the show and you came to the show, hello again.
Yeah,
it was great to meet you. But we're back in San Diego, Jacques. It's gonna touch 80 degrees this week, which means that not only is spring here, but at least for me, I'm starting to think about my summer crops from a seed starting perspective.
That's right. I am actually, this year, I went a little ahead.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Something in me, I think my biological tuning to my climate has just predicted that it's going to be a warmer spring. So I decided to get a little ahead this year. We'll see if it pays off. If not, I'm gonna have to start a new round of seeds.
Yeah, and that's not the worst thing in the world.
Because I have all my peppers and all my tomatoes started. Where are you at?
I have none. Because you know what happened last year is I started them in early Feb. And then I planted them too tall. All my tomatoes were a bit too tall. So my first crop of tomatoes, last year, wasn't bad. It just wasn't epic, right?
Yeah.
And so this year I was trying to realize that when I keep thinking about our summer, I always think, okay, well, you know, June is summer, and for us it's just not. It's not. So June can be a bit gloomy, and then July, August, September even can be a bit more summery.
I'd say that's our true summer.
I need to time my tomatoes to be starting harvest, I want to say early to mid-July, which on a 90-day maturity means that it's really not even time for me to start them yet. That's my current logic.
Yeah.
So I don't have any problem with the way you've done it, of course, but I'm going off of the trauma I experienced last year. So.
Yeah. And I think last episode, I discussed my strategy for the tomato starting that I'm doing this year. I posted a video about it on my channel, but what I have right now is that my cold season, determinates, things like Glacier, I've already even potted up into 4 cells.
Oh, okay.
So they're now in 4 cells and they're about 3 inches tall. So those could go out in the garden literally in March, which is basically now. So in about a week or 2, I'll probably put them out. Yeah. And then all my other tomatoes are just emerged and they're about 1 inch tall.
What I would say about your strategy that is making sense is you're kind of doing a multi-harvest, multi-windowed harvest.
Yeah.
So your Glacier will come out, you'll probably start having it in May, right? And that's fine, and that's great. I probably won't have ripe tomatoes in May, which is just a trade I'm making for all the other stuff I'm growing, because as we sit here, we are surrounded by probably my most prolific crop, at least this season, which would be garlic.
Yeah.
And so to the questions that we had last episode when we talked about our staples and some of the things that we want to grow, my garden looks pretty staple heavy right now. I have potatoes, and there's actually...
Looking good too.
Yeah, there's our potato experiment right over here where we're growing 8 different methods. But then I have two other areas in the garden that have potatoes. One full quadrant of my backyard garden is potatoes. And then in my artichoke patch, I kind of drilled in with the power planter some potatoes.
Okay, I saw some of them came up already.
They're starting to come up now. And then I also have 3 squares of garlic in the test garden, 1 in the backyard and 1 in the front yard.
Oh, wow.
So I have 3 different areas for 2 different crops.
I thought I was growing a lot of garlic, but you might be catching up to me, honestly. I have about, I think I said 400 to 600.
Yeah.
And you're probably in the 400 range at this point.
I might be in the 400 range. You know, I don't know, because they're all different planting styles. So I think I want to say about 300 heads. Yeah. Which for me is fine. I'm even making note of the mistake I made last year where I overwatered as it got closer to harvest. Yep. And then I sort of rotted away the paper skin. And so I had a lot of my cloves or my bulbs last year just had no skins. Yeah, no storage potential. No storage potential. So I had to process them really quickly, which is unfortunate. So I've already actually halved my watering on my front yard garlic bed. Okay. Because I'm worried about that in the raised bed. I think it just, with the mulch on top, it stays moist, too moist. So I cut the watering down there. I don't know if you've done anything else with your garlic this year. So far, I've
I've definitely made sure to add fertilizer more than I have in the past. This is the part of the year, especially when we're about to hit true spring, even though it feels like spring here in San Diego. This is the time of year where your fertilizer has the biggest impact on things like garlic in particular, right? Because they're just growing leaves. So you want to make sure that at this point, they're focusing on putting out as many leaves as possible to get those giant cloves. So that's all I've really done there. The other thing I'm really trying to do right now is go for the holy three-peat brassica harvests.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard about. I don't even know if I've told you about this.
You haven't, no.
I was talking to somebody, I think it was Paul, and I was saying like that I had started more broccolis and cabbages, and he's like, "Isn't it too late?" I was like, "Look, I'm going for that winter harvest, which I've already got.
Yeah.
Or sorry, fall harvest first. I got the fall harvest, then I got the winter harvest, which I'm in right now. I want to get a true spring harvest in San Diego. So what I've done is I've transplanted a lot of young seedlings. I think about in mid-February. So hopefully by the end of March, they'll start to actually be harvestable. And then I'll be able to transition into my full summer garden.
I'll be curious.
It's a risky play.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if you get it. Because as it stands right
I know,
now,
it's starting to get hot.
I'm getting blasted just right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking my brassicas would not even like this temperature, let alone anything that comes up. But
No.
who knows, the temps could swing in
Exactly.
March. Could be a little more of a
So
chill
it's a long
March.
play. It's a long play.
But you have, what's interesting is you're dancing in two worlds.
I'm playing both sides of the coin right
Because he's
there.
saying, I think it's going to be a warmer spring, and then he's also trying to grow the brassicas in spring.
See, that's the thing. As a gardener, I've learned to hedge my bets. I
Yeah.
am never fully locked in on any plan. I'm never locked in on a season. Every year, the seasons are different.
Yeah.
It's like literally impossible for us to predict. One year, we didn't get hot enough. I didn't get my pepper harvest until August.
Yeah.
That was a bummer.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, I think, yeah.
Last year, I got plenty of peppers earlier. So you just never know. So what I've learned is to have to sacrifice a lot of seedlings. So there is some cost to it because I start way more seeds than I really need. But by doing so, I could play every single situation that comes my way.
Yeah, that's the tip that we had spoken about on stage at Northwest was we answered a ton of questions from everyone who attended. And one of the things about succession sowing, et cetera, that I was mentioning is I was like, you almost don't have to worry about true succession as a home gardener most of the time if you just double tray. Just start more seeds. Now, of course, that breaks down when you're talking about literally planning out the harvest to the day.
Yeah.
So, hey, I want, 10 carrots every week, something like that. Then yeah, you do have to get into a real succession there. But I've found, at least for me, I don't need that level of granularity to it. I like a little more flex on what's there.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's kind of complex. Like, even think about carrots. Remember my last spring? My carrots were really crushing it.
Yeah.
I left those in the ground, some of them until March, April, as storage.
Oh.
And they came out and they were just ever so slightly woodier.
Yeah.
But then they became a good stew or baking style carrot, and it was fine. Even then, succession, I didn't have to plan on succession. I just had to harvest on succession, I guess.
Yeah. And it's really weird since like in San Diego, we don't really have a true season at all.
True winter, yeah.
True anything, I feel like. I feel like it's just kind of a blur.
Sure.
Like it's slightly cold, then it's slightly warmer. So it's kind of hard to like program successions in because we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like always different.
Yeah.
That's just, I guess, true everywhere, to be fair.
Well, what I'm focused on now is getting my summer stuff in now.
Okay.
So as we go into March, now I'm saying, okay, I will start my peppers, I will start my tomatoes, and
I want to hear about your strat. Like, are you doing anything different for peppers and tomatoes?
So let's talk about what I did last year. Last year, I did a slimmer tomato year.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, that's right.
I had a more expansive year the year prior. And as those of you who know who've listened for a couple years now, I like to go expand, contract, kind of like you're drafting a football team and then you kick some people off the roster. And so this year, I think I'm in expand mode on tomatoes and I'm in contract mode on peppers, I think. So I'd like to try some new varieties that are supposed to do better in our climate. I'd like to try, nary I say, some more unique tomato varieties that I haven't ventured down that path in a while. I haven't really gone
There's
down
a lot of crazy ones that even I try a lot of tomatoes every year, but I haven't gotten into the crazy stuff.
It's been years since I've gone down the blues, the purples.
The traveling tomatoes, maybe?
The traveling tomatoes,
Bringing that
yeah, the
back?
Risa Tomate. Yeah, I actually would like to grow that.
That
Do you
was
have those
fun.
seeds?
I think I still do. I can give you
Okay,
some.
I'm going to
I'll
grow
hook you
those.
up.
Because those pocket tomatoes are amazing. So what I'm going to do is that, and then with peppers, I just planted, I think, too many too close. It became too much of a jungle. I'm going to space them out a little bit more, and I'm going to put them in a couple more areas. And much like I did last year, where I split my tomato harvests from my eaters and my saucers, I had 2 separate beds,
Yeah,
right?
we had a lot of sauce tomatoes last year.
A lot of sauce. Still have some in the freezer.
Same.
I'm gonna do my dryers and my freshers for my peppers because I'm on that
the paprika garden.
Paprika grind, and I'm on the spice grind.
Yeah.
Right, like the spicy mix grind. So that's one of the ideas that I have.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. What about this year? We always talk about peppers and tomatoes. It's my favorite stuff, but I'd love to know in a little bit. Basically, are you doing anything different with your cucumbers and squash?
We'll talk about that in a second.
So every single year, I do mix up my pepper and tomato game, but I don't really pay any attention to my squashes, my cucumbers, my other summer classics that are often shoved to the side. I don't know if you have any ideas. I have a couple, but curious.
Well, okay, so last year I kind of agree with you.
Yeah,
I would say.
I don't know why we don't give them their moment to shine.
Well, there's so many varieties of peppers and tomatoes, and they're so versatile across all cuisines.
I guess
that's part of it. But I did up my cuke game last year a little bit by splitting off again. Basically, seems like what I've been doing is I've been splitting off into fresh eat and preserved or transformed gardens.
I see.
So last year I did the same thing with my cukes, where I did the homemade pickles variety, and that was my pickling cuke. And then I forgot the variety off the top of my head, but basically a fresh slicer, like an English style cucumber slicer. But to your point, like I could have gone even harder down that path. Now I will say with squash, we ended up planting, I don't know why, but we started a ton of squash. Remember last year?
Right, actually.
So much squash.
It was a lot of squash.
It was a lot of squash. It was probably like 15 squash plants. It was definitely too much, but all of that made it to Kitchens for Good.
Yeah.
So it all made it to a program that helps those who've been incarcerated come into the cooking culinary trade, right? And so they got to use a bunch of squash probably for like cutting techniques or something like that. So it all went to a good place. Needless to say, I don't need that much.
No.
So I would say for me, when I think of squash, I think of squash I really want to eat. I think of things like acorn and more of the winter style squashes, because I remember cutting them open, butter, brown sugar, that kind of thing. I'm going to go down that route, I think, this year.
More winter style, then.
I think I'm going to go more winters. That helps me in 2 ways. First of all, it's more like what I want to eat. But second of all, you let it fully mature.
Yeah.
So you don't have that harvesting, oh, I missed the harvest, oh, the zucchini is bad, I got to chop it and put it in the compost
That's
type problem.
true. It's kind of a set and forget plant.
Yeah, so I may go to that. And then maybe with my cukes, I'd love to do an arch or trellis. I don't think it's been a while at least since I've done a full arch of a hanging, vining, fruiting plant. Yeah. Like a loofah or a cuke. So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah, I honestly wish I did more of those. I feel like our plants, just where we are climatically, it's powdery mildew city. Yeah. So anything that vines gets powdery mildew here. Yeah. And so I love the idea of growing up arches, but then I do, and half the plant looks terrible. Like it doesn't look as aesthetic. So maybe I could preventatively try spraying this year with some organic spray, try to take care of it better. Yeah. And that will help. But
my thesis is this, like if you get it off the ground soon enough and prevent PM from forming in the first 2 to 3 feet, my guess is that it's probably unlikely it's going to get new PM at 3+ feet in the air. Because I'm thinking maybe the spores are more on the ground than not, but I have no idea if that's true.
Yeah, in my experience, they just get wrecked.
Yeah, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, one thing I think I'm going to try is still doing summer squash, but I might try like the summer squash alternatives more. So in the past, I've talked about like center cut, that's technically butternut. Yeah. I want to try like the trombosino, the like snake, like the long Italian ones, like even cucuzza we've grown before. Yeah. But my favorite is still the Emerald Express from Botanical Interest. I don't know why I like that one so much flavor-wise. But I haven't branched really into that world too deep. I'd like to look a little bit more at what else is out there. Yeah. Cucumbers, I'm going to try at BI. We have, last year I think they were sold out. I haven't checked this year. We have the gherkins.
Oh,
you know,
you're
like
gonna go with those?
The cornichon, like the really
little guys.
teeny ones. Like
you put them in like
French
a little
pickles.
jar. Yeah.
Yeah, you cut them in half and you put them on like a little sandwich.
Ooh.
So I want to try making some gherkins this year for sure.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I think about that too? I think if you wanted to do it and harvest it all at the same time, you probably need 3 or 4 gherkin plants, right? Because otherwise you're gonna have to wait and then your batching will be off.
Yeah, you can't do like half a jar. Well, I guess you can, but it's kind of silly.
You could. But yeah, you know, that's interesting. For something, it brings a new dimension to the planning because think about a pepper with paprika. It's fine because you just let it fully mature and then you cut and dry it. And if they dry it, let's say
it doesn't matter.
One month offset from first to last, then it doesn't really matter because it's just gonna dry, and then once it's dry, it's dry. But with something like a gherkin or a pickle, you need enough bulk volume to harvest at that exact time.
And that's where I've honestly struggled in the past because I love the ideas of like pickle cucumbers, but you get like 3 from a plant maybe in a day.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do? Like that's a half jar.
You'd have to preserve in the fridge until you got enough bulk. But to me, it's the solution is I think you probably have to plant 4 to 6 of those plants.
And I'd rather just stack up a bunch of jars and be done with it than have to like baby them in the fridge. They get a little bit softer. I want that crunchy, delicious.
Think about how much
pickle.
effort that would take just for one plant.
I know. I needed to get a second fridge this year for sure. I know we talked about it earlier and yours is already coming into play. But I think that's on the docket for me this year.
That's going to be
too much.
It's going to be big for me this year. I'm dialing in. I've been talking about my gut health here and there. Actually, we just recently had Armra as a sponsor on our main channel, a product I actually really enjoy. And it's helped my gut out a lot. But I'm trying to add in more diverse inputs in my diet so that I cultivate more diverse ecosystem in the gut.
Trying to get that biome.
Well, yeah, I'll say this, and for those of you listening, we'll keep it PG here, but I had done some gut biome, testing, and the methodology it's unsettling.
Yeah.
But
you need a sample.
You need a sample of something. I'll just say that much. But the results were not great. They weren't. I wasn't happy with them, and it matched how I was feeling as well. And so we even had a chat through Northwest and talking about some strategies. So I'm doing some supplemental strategies, but I'm also thinking pickled goods from the garden, more fresh goods from the garden in different preparations would be nice. I'm getting the sourdough starter back out and doing a little more baking right now.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually just saw Mike Greenfield over at Life by Mike G, formerly Pro Home Cooks. He just dropped a video on butter and sourdough. So it said it's taken me 10 years to master this.
Butter.
So cultured butter.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And his own sourdough, and he's quite good at both.
Yeah.
And so he does his own butter now.
That's awesome.
At his place, and I started thinking about it. I was like, maybe I should be getting into that game too, because once you make it, you're good for a while with the butter.
Yeah, it lasts
especially
if
you salt it.
I'm
imagining it's quite good. So I would love to have the time really to put into more of those types of preparations.
Yeah, because they do take a little bit more grunt work up front, and that's actually the main reason I want a second fridge is because my current fridge is already full of like jars, pickles, sauces, things like that. I need a pickle fridge. And right now, I'll actually bring you some because I forgot to do this earlier, but I have a huge jar of pickled cauliflower, cabbage, celery, and carrots from the garden that I pickled in an apple cider vinegar with a bunch of spices. And I think that's my new favorite way to eat cauliflower is actually pickled.
Yeah.
So I'll bring you something to try because it's definitely a good way to make use of your extra produce too. But other than that, like the thing I'm probably most excited for this year, because we had so many people ask us that when we were in Seattle, and I was looking for an answer. And I think my answer is that I'm most excited for all the fruit trees that I put into my garden last year.
Yeah.
I added a lot.
You really stepped up your fruit tree game.
Yeah.
Yeah. You put in off the top of my head at least 4.
Yeah. I have a 3-in-1 peach, a 4-in-1 plum, 2 separate European style pears, 2 apple trees, and 2 pomegranates.
Wow.
And there might even be another one. Those are in ground.
What palm varieties did you go with? Wonderful.
I think one was Parfianca.
Parfianca.
And then I think the other one was like red silk, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
I don't
so
even
you didn't do
remember.
a wonderful.
It might be wonderful. I don't even honestly remember.
Yeah.
And I also have a wild pomegranate that just randomly popped up near my sidewalk. And I ate the fruit from that. It was my favorite pomegranate ever. So I actually have 6 cuttings of those, and it looks like 3 of them rooted. So
what's nice about palm,
maybe another tree.
I don't know if this is something that you were aware of or not, but palm's not a grafted plant.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it doesn't really matter. Like if you root it, you'll be very happy with that fruit. Similarly with figs.
Yeah.
Figs
I actually have a lot of fig cuttings right now sitting in soil.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's rare to see a fruit tree that isn't grafted. I would say for me, fruit, I'm making it a habit now as we get into probably about half of my citrus is in fruit production right now, because the rest was in fall.
Yeah.
Eating of the fruit, like every day, come out, grab an orange, like munch it down. I'm actually excited to get lemons proper, although I do think that my front 3 or 4 citrus that have never been on what I would call double irrigation, they are not on the gray water plus the actual irrigation, which all the other ones are, and they're doing a lot better.
They're doing real good.
I'm considering a full replace of the front 4.
Yeah.
Because I'm missing lemons. I don't have any lemons in the back 8 that are actually on proper irrigation. And what I want to try, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, is the whole lemon drink. Have you ever heard of this?
No, hit me with it.
So I don't know it off the top of my head, and maybe we'll do a video on it, and you'll have to subscribe to Epic Homesteading when we make that. But it's basically a super anti-inflammatory drink you can make that includes the entire lemon.
Oh.
And somehow I think you blend it and filter it such that all the skin essence and oils, etc., make it through the filter, but all the pulp doesn't. But you blend it like very, very finely. And it kind of ends up looking like almost like a lemon icy.
Yeah,
in its look. It's like sort of white yellow.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious about that. I want to try that out, especially given the stuff I was talking about.
Yeah. What about the pink lemonade? Is that not lemony enough?
It may not be lemony enough. I'd like to do it with a Eureka lemon, like a pure sort of lemon classic. The only other things I've put in this past year, believe I put in, well, the mango's in for sure, but also I think I put in all these ones over here.
Yeah, because we got these at the same time. So
yeah.
You have the 2 pairs that I have.
The Hood and the Florida Home pair.
Yeah, and then you have the Asian pair though.
The 4 Asian pairs.
That one's exciting.
I've got the cherry.
Yeah.
And I've got the 2
persimmons.
Persimmons.
Yeah.
Which I did get 2 persimmons off of those last year, but no cherries yet, no pears of any kind. I don't even know if this year I'll get them, but the pruning job is nice.
The pear has tons of flowers, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, we'll see.
Whether we'll get any fruit?
We'll see. I mean, I've pruned it. I noticed that the pears really like to shoot straight up.
Yes.
So you have to control their vertical height a lot because they want to go straight up, and I need a little more bushiness.
I think I'm actually posting my fruit tree pruning video this week. Like I just recorded it on everything that I pruned in my garden.
Yeah.
So that'll be out for sure by the time our March, like this podcast is out.
Yeah.
So check that out as well.
Yeah, check that out. And then upcoming on Epic Gardening is going to be the return of the Epic Brother.
Ooh.
He's back on the podcast,
That's right.
back on the channel, and we're doing a full hour-long garden audit in the second year, transplant, pruning, and a 40-plus minute seed starting session explaining everything from the most beginner possible level. And that's with our new Epic seed line. So all 40 of our new Epic seeds, him and his wife are checking those out. And Jacques, it's getting hot. I'm wearing a fleece jacket. I need to get out of the sun. We will see you on the next episode here, and stay tuned because there's actually a lot of cool things coming to the Beet. We're thinking about launching some new shows, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. Good luck in the garden and keep on growing.